Hey, everybody, we got a really old guy on the podcast today, as usual. But this guy is even older than Norm Ornstein, James Carville, Elizabeth Drew, Harry Reid, and Anthony Fauci. Norman Lear, the legendary TV comedy writer, producer, creator of groundbreaking sitcoms like The Jeffersons and Maude, One Day at a Time, and All in the Family. He joins me. And we are dropping this show on June 25th, 2021, 2 days before Norman's 99th birthday. Holy crap. So I've got a lot to talk about with Norman, flying 52 missions on the B-17, the Flying Fortress in World War II, writing for a whole bunch of the Jack Haley show. He did Jack Haley. You'll hear him talk about this. Jack Haley was the Tin Man. I'm just doing this for people younger than me. And then creating iconic hit after iconic hit TV show, starting People for the American Way, which became a favorite target of the nutcase Christian right. The day after 9/11, Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson blamed 9/11 on the abortionists and the feminists and gays and lesbians and the ACLU, People for the American Way. I put my finger in your direction and say, you made this happen. Now, does that make them nutcases? I think so. But how's this? This is, I was watching the 700 Club. This is several years ago. And I'm very interested in Pat Robertson, especially because he's a very happy Christian. That's kind of his thing. He's very happy. Praise the Lord. Thank God it's Friday. Anyway, Pat Robertson, I was watching the 700 Club, and he said this: there's a woman in Ohio who's just been cured of her diverticulitis. Praise Jesus. How irresponsible, Say you're a woman in Cincinnati who's got diverticulitis and you're watching the 700 Club and you hear Pat Robertson say, there's a woman in Ohio who's been cured of her diverticulitis. And this woman, she thinks it's her, but it isn't. It's a woman in Cincinnati. But she thinks it's her, so she eats a bowl of nuts and dies. How many times did that happen? Because Pat Robertson was just so irresponsible. Okay, I'm going to be on tour, by the way. So I hope, just want to remind everyone of that. I'm doing a 15-city tour starting September 18th in North Haven, Mass. I'll be in Milwaukee and Minneapolis and Kansas City and Boulder, Dallas. I'll be all over the place, and you can go to alfranken.com to see if I'm coming to your city and how you can get tickets. I hope you do that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But now let's go to, I hope Norman liked the story about the woman in Ohio with diverticulitis. I think Norman would like that. And I love my conversation with the legendary Norman Lear, and I know you will too. Okay, let's start with, your dad went to like prison, right? Or something?
He did.
He did.
When I was 9 years old, he tried to sell some fake bonds, or that's about what I understood at that time. And he served 3 years on Deer Island off the coast of Boston.
And was that formative in any way, or was it just a bummer? Or how did that affect your mom? And did it affect your comedy? Did it affect your whole point of view?
It affected it certainly affected my comedy a good deal.
How?
My mother we were living in Chelsea, Mass. I'm 9 years old. My mother is ashamed to be living where we're living, and there are strangers in the house. It's 2 days after they took my father away, and one stranger is looking and talking to my mother about buying his red leather chair, which was the most precious item of furniture in my life. because I used to sit in that red leather chair and ottoman with my dad on Friday nights and listen to the fights from Madison Square Garden. I'll never, if I lived to be 1,000, and I'd like that. I could never forget that.
Well, you're 1/10 of the way there almost.
So this stranger puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Well, Norman, you're the man of the house now."
Oh,
Somehow I knew that was funny.
You knew that was funny at 9? Okay, he meant it seriously, but you thought it was really funny.
In the most dire way.
Okay, well, I think you were, yes, that. So you basically saw things funny from the start. That wasn't the first time. You're the man of the house now?
Yeah. Well, Norman, you're the man of the house now.
And you were 9.
My father has just been taken away. I was.
And that was so helpful. He was being helpful, you know.
Well, it was certainly helpful years later when I realized more and more how funny it was.
Okay, well, jump ahead. Well, I'm going to jump around, but I know you wrote a lot for Martin and Lewis, right?
Yes. We had done the Jack Haley show.
You and Ed Simmons.
That was our first television show. We were in New York. It was in New York we did it. Jerry Lewis saw a sketch on it and thought, "Oh, my God, he could have done that a lot better than Jack Haley." And he asked to meet those writers. And we did the first 3 years of the Martin and Lewis Colgate Comedy Hour.
I just got to ask you what it was like working for Martin and Lewis, particularly Lewis, but also Martin. So Martin and Lewis, what was it like working for Martin and Lewis?
It was glorious at the beginning. Jerry was hilarious and dear, very, very dear. And he grew to be kind of the Pope. He, over time, grew to know everything and everything about everything, and it was very, very difficult with him.
He became like the auteur that had to grind his own lenses, kind of Jerry.
Yes, yeah. It was amazing how he became something 180 degrees from this dear kid he was when we started.
And how quickly was that? Because, I mean, obviously that was fame and success and
it stretched out over a couple of years.
Okay. So now I'm going to back up again. So we're not going chronologically, but we kind of are. World War II.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. I want on behalf of the mediocre generation, I'd like to thank those of you in the greatest generation who saved, mankind. So thank you for that.
Welcome and thank you. It's hard to believe that all of that happened in the same lifetime.
You were on a bomber, right?
Yes, I was on a B-17 known as the Flying Fortress.
And did missions over, you were out of Italy, were you?
I got out of Foggia, Italy, yeah. I got credit for 52 missions and actually dropped bombs 35 times.
And your job was
a radio operator, and I had the top gun.
That's dangerous. That was dangerous. Did you know that? Did anyone tell you?
No, the guys were telling me it was dangerous. I hadn't really noticed all the Messerschmitts in the air and the missiles from the ground. I really didn't know.
Man, oh man. So that's I imagine that you may be the last of your crew around. Is that accurate?
I am the last of my crew, yeah.
But what's interesting is we do a pretty political show here, but also we have people from comedy, and you've bridged both. We like to have people who have bridged both, which I like to think I have. And, you formed People for the American Way, and it was named that for a reason. Am I right?
Yes, it was. I didn't wake up any morning of my life and say, I'm going to start an organization. What happened was I was watching the Jerry Falwells and Pat Robertsons and Jimmy Swaggarts and other religious right figures on radio and some on television mixing politics and religion. And I knew that was antithetical to my understanding of the Constitution and the American way. And so what I did was I wrote and cast a 1-minute PSA of a working guy on a piece of tractor equipment. The camera panned in and pushed in on him as he said, he and his wife and kids sit around the dinner table and talk about politics all the time, and they disagree about many, many things. But now here comes some ministers on radio and television telling him this is the way to think, and if you don't think this way, you're un-American. And he's learning all the time from these guys that he's un-American. Oh, no, that he's the full American at the table and his wife is un-American. And he knows his wife is the smartest person he's met. In defending her, he finds his own point of view must be off somehow because he winds up saying that's not the American way. Mixing politics and religion is not the American way.
What year did you do that ad?
1973 or 4.
I want to cut to 9/11. Do you remember what Falwell and Roberts were on together and what they said about you and others about 9/11?
No, refresh me.
Okay, this is Falwell. I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who have tried to secularize America, I put my finger in their face and say, you helped this happen. And Robertson said, well, I totally concur.
You sounded like him for that moment.
I used to do Robertson because he was like a happy Christian. You know that?
Yes.
Yeah. But these guys, that was so pernicious. Martin Luther King mixed religion with politics, but he did it in a very, 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 very different way. And so is Raphael Warnock, who obviously is,
yes,
this is from the same church. I mean, a minister at the same church. And People for the American Way really took these guys on, the Falwells and the Robertsons, and we're still living with that. We're still living with that divide. We see it very starkly of the evangelical right, which had its control of the judges, which is something I saw firsthand, and that is pernicious. Okay, so I want to get back to how you got to Hollywood. You went to Emerson College. By the way, our engineer, I'm in New York right now, and the engineer here, Samantha, is she went to Emerson too, and said that you endowed the school for kids who were in need. So she thanks you.
I've helped. I loved Emerson. I wonder if is she listening to this?
She is.
I wonder
yes.
if this lasted, this song at that time when I went to Emerson. Emerson is marching, follow the lead.
Of all the things you've done in show business, singing was not one of them.
No, there's nothing I wish to do more. I can't imagine anything lovelier by way of earning one's living, spending one's life, than looking into the faces you're singing for, singing to the appreciation, for the appreciation of a crowd.
Well, how about making them laugh?
Making them laugh, standing behind an audience when they are guffawing, when you're looking at several hundred people in bleachers and they guffaw, they belly laugh. They tend to come out of their seats a little, their bodies move forward, and then their bodies move back into the seat again. And in my life, I've never known a more spiritual, divine moment than watching several hundred people guffaw.
And that's your studio audience. You shot on video.
Yes.
And you shot you're what's called 3-camera.
Always live in front of a studio audience.
And I can testify to that. An audience laughing is really, there's almost nothing better.
Nothing.
Okay, so you get you leave Emerson. You don't graduate from Emerson, right?
Right.
Because you go to the war.
I enlisted. Yeah, we were at 9/11. We were rehearsing a play called Two Orphans behind 130 Beacon Street on the Esplanade. And somebody came running down the fire escape to say they had just fired on Pearl Harbor. I'll never forget that moment. The director of this piece, Two Orphans, was named Gertrude Binley Kay. And she talked like this. She was a Boston Brahmin who talked like... We loved her. I don't mean to make fun of her at all. That's her sound. She wanted to go down. Her immediate reaction was to go down to Boylston Street and throw some rocks into this Japanese antique shop.
Okay. All right.
I don't think, if anybody had wished to do it, she would have done it. But that was her reflexive reaction. I can never forget.
So you enlisted, or you?
I called my folks the next day or that day and said I was enlisting. My mother told me she would die if I did. Please, begged me, and I didn't. But it wasn't a year before I could handle it anymore, and I had to tell her I was doing it, and I enlisted.
And hence the 50-some missions. You get out, and how do you get into show business?
I had an uncle who was a press agent.
Okay.
Actually, what I wanted to be when I was a kid was a press agent, because my Uncle Jack used to flick me a quarter every time he saw me. I don't know how many times, 10, 12 times that he saw me over the years, but he flicked me a quarter. That was my role model. I wanted to be an uncle who could flick a quarter. He said he was a press agent. I wanted to be a press agent. And when as the war ended, I was still overseas. And I wrote a letter and sent it to my Uncle Jack. And he sent it out to a number. I just wrote that I was a GI. I just finished flying some missions. And I was coming home. All my life wanted to be a press agent like my Uncle Jack and so forth. And I got one offer in the mail as a job and one offer as an interview. And I took the job.
I think it was a smart choice, because if you'd gone to the interview, I might not be talking to you, because you may not have ever done any shows. Who knows? So, okay, does that get you out to LA, being a press agent?
Well, what we didn't know is, there was a Danton Walker and a Louis Sobel and a Walter Winchell and a Leonard Lyons, and there were Dorothy Kilgallen, and we wrote, what we hoped were witticisms for our clients. Moss Hart, Kitty Carlisle gifted. I wrote this, and Dorothy Kilgallen printed it. That Kitty Carlisle gifted Moss Hart with a pocket flask measured to his hip while he slept. While he napped.
I see. So that was a press agent then, was right. It's like writing tweets.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's what you were doing.
And they were printed by the columnists I mentioned, and that was my job.
Okay, so is that a publicist? Is that what you are, a press agent, as a publicist?
I came out to California to be a publicist and met Ed Simmons, who wanted to be a comedy writer.
And you two became a writing team.
Our wives went to a movie one night. We were babysitting, and we wrote something together. When they came home from the movies at 10:30 or so, I said, "Why don't we go out and see if we can sell this?" There was a place called the Bar Music not far away, and I used to remember her name. She played the piano and told jokes, and we sold it to her for $40. And
Pretty good.
$20 was about a third of what I made selling door to door in those years.
So you were kind press agent, kind of door to door salesman.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the beginning. Is just the your wives go out to a movie and you decide to write something. And then you sell it, and bam, you're writing for Martin and Lewis, and then
I wrote something for Danny Thomas.
Man, I love Danny Thomas.
I got a telephone number from a woman I know who was the secretary for the agent, who was Danny Thomas's agent. Through her, I got Danny's number. And I called him and told him I was a writer and I had an idea for him. And he thought I had a piece of material. And he was working with Wally Pop. That was his accompanist. God, I can't believe I remember that name.
Okay. Wally Pop.
He was working with his accompanist because he was doing a bit the next night at Ciro's, and it would be a crowd that knew his material and knew a lot about his work and so forth. He hoped he could find a 4-minute thing that he could do. The very next night, I said, "I've got that idea." And he said, "Okay, get over here." I said, "I'll be there in about 3 hours." He said, "You said you're in Hollywood. I'm in Beverly Hills. Get over here. You'll be here in 20 minutes. But I hadn't written this thing. It was just an idea.
Oh, okay.
And he said, "All right, I'll get over here by 4:00 or something like that." And he did it the next night. I was standing in the kitchen at Ciro's, and he did well. You know, he was great. Next thing I knew, I had an offer to come to New York and write.
Oh, so now you're in LA, then you go back to New York to write.
Yeah.
Okay. And eventually, and that's where you met Martin and Lewis, or that's where you met Jack Haley, or where?
I went back east to do the Jack Haley show.
Okay.
And that's how I met Martin and Lewis, because Jerry was coming on to television in the Colgate Comedy Hour. He saw a sketch I'd written.
The one he thought he could have done better than Haley. Even better than Haley. Yes. So now you're in it. You're in show business. You're really in show business. You're writing. You're like head writers for the TV show. Either that or what? Producers?
We were the head writers for the Colgate Comedy Hour, starring Martin and Lewis.
Okay, I got you. So now you're big time. You're there. Boom.
Yeah.
Okay, and then boom. How many years later? What are we talking about now? 70 years later, 70 years later, you're still writing. You're still, but and you do a number of things. I know, you did Divorce American Style. Was that a movie that you wrote?
Yes. Divorce American Style. I loved it.
It was actually, I think I remember seeing that, like, what was it, 1960 or something, or 61 or
something like that.
Yeah. But of course, the big deal, the big unbelievable breakthrough in terms of not just your career but American culture is All in the Family. And that's 50 years now, right?
Yeah.
50 years ago.
But this is the 50-year celebration, yeah.
Yeah, 71. And it was like, I think in January 71.
Yeah.
And, you were able to do political, and social satire, which I don't believe had been done. Had it?
My answer to these questions are from what I've read over the years. I'm not sure I knew it had never been done when we did it, but I've read over the years that it was
not in a sitcom. I mean, that was the week that was a satirical show, a news show.
The Smothers Brothers.
And the Smothers Brothers as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, they came close.
No, they did. They did absolutely nail on the head. They were kicked off the air because they did nail on the head political stuff.
Yes, they were kicked
about
off.
Vietnam. Yeah, no, they were gone.
Yeah.
You created Archie Bunker. You created this lovable bigot. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say. That's what everybody called him.
And then Meathead, Rob Reiner, is sort of the progressive in the house, the liberal, and that tension is there always. That's built into the show. I've known
Rob Reiner since he and my oldest daughter were 6 years old. But Carl and I lived about 3 houses apart on Fire Island for a couple of summers.
Mm-hmm.
And we became fast friends, and so I knew Rob as a little bully.
Carl, hard not to be a friend of Carl Reiner's. I count myself as one. In the last number of years, whenever I get to LA, I would go to his house. I'd call him up, and he was at home. He was at home, yeah. And you could just, Carl, can I come over? And I come over, and he was so nice. I'd bring members of my staff, my Senate staff, over, and my God! And one night I had dinner with Mel Brooks and him, just the 3 of us, and that was pretty good. I dine out on that a lot. That's much better than I had dinner with Ted Cruz.
I had a friend who owned Caesar's Palace for a couple of years. I knew him well. And he called me one day and he said, we have a house in Palm Springs and another one in La Costa. They each have 5 bedrooms. They're fully staffed, and they're not used every weekend. Some weekend, if you're free, call the office and see if one of them are open. I did that, and the house in Palm Springs was open. I called Carl and Mel, Larry Gelbart, who was the greatest of the comedy writers.
All these guys are in your show of shows and Sid Caesar's.
Yes, show. And John DeLuise. And we were 5 couples. And we went down to Palm Springs. And that resulted in about 6 years of Palm Springs and La Costa every year. The same 5 couples. There were weekends when we'd arrive on Friday night, get up and have breakfast in our bedclothes on Saturday, and get out of our bedclothes Sunday night to go home. That's how much we laughed.
Boy, oh boy. And you didn't tape it, you asshole.
I don't think we were taping that way then.
Of course not. And you could retire, Norman, if you had those tapes.
Larry Gelbart came out of, he had some work to do. He came out of the bedroom one afternoon and said he took some time and wrote a song for us. We called ourselves Jenemveld, which is Yiddish for the other world. And so we all sang. And then that became something we had to do, sitting at the table for every meal before we ate. Oh, Jenemveld, oh, Jenemveld, oh, Jenemveld, oh, Jenemveld. That was it. Oh, Jenemveld.
That was it?
That was
so it was O Tannenbaum, but you put in Jenemveld?
Jenemveld.
And you know what I'm thinking? You guys weren't very funny. That group.
It didn't matter because we thought we were.
I know. Well, you thought you were funny, but Larry Gelbart, Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks, Norman Lear, Dom DeLuise. Eh.
Yeah.
Annie
Bancroft was no slouch also.
That's Anne Bancroft, great actress and Mel's wife. Okay, so All in the Family wasn't a hit right out of the bat, right? Right out of the gate.
It took some weeks. It was in about 6 weeks. It started to move up.
That's pretty fast.
I wouldn't call it a hit, but enough to be picked up for the following season.
Right, and then it was the number one show for, I don't know, what, 5 years or something.
Yeah,
and then of course Sanford and Son, and just the slew of huge hits that you had. Good Times,
Maude.
And how many of these were spinoffs of spinoffs? Was Maude a spinoff of All in the? No, it wasn't. Was it? Maude was based.
Well, it wasn't a spinoff in the sense that I brought B. Arthur out, knowing that if he did this role, they would all ask for her to do a television show. I didn't have the Maude in mind and so forth, but I knew that B. Arthur wasn't going to do this guest shot without some phone calls. You got to build a show around her.
Wow.
Because she was hilarious and the role was perfect. Archie had been on the air for a little while, and I wanted somebody that could put him down, really tower over him and nail him. And remembering my own family life, I knew there was nothing like an old neighbor, an old relative with a grudge. Somebody who wasn't invited to Gert's wedding 22 years ago. You know, that kind of a grudge.
Mm-hmm.
The author came on All in the Family as a cousin of Edith that she hadn't seen for 25 years. They were kids together. But she knew Edith when she met Archie and was totally against the marriage. So she came in with that grudge. And she was wonderful. And I didn't get home that night before I had a phone call because the show was earlier in New York saying, you got to do something with that woman.
And you did. And now that, of course, had the controversial Maude Gets an Abortion episode. And do you think that you can do what you were doing then now, or you can't? Or what's the difference?
Well, I've been doing One Day at a Time with Rita Moreno and Justina Machado, a Latino version of it.
Right.
Up to last season, we did 4 years.
I saw an episode where the census taker came.
Yeah.
Which was very funny.
But we had a great time. There wasn't anything we wished to do that we fought over in terms of the network saying you can't do it. We were wide open.
Good. What do you watch now? What do you like now? Who are the young, what are the shows you like, and who are the comedians you like?
I don't like my answer to this question.
Oh.
It's somewhat of an addiction to what's going on, the news. Turn on Chris Hayes at 6:00 or so, and he's followed by Rachel Maddow, who's followed by what's his face, who's followed by Brian
Lawrence O'Donnell.
Lawrence O'Donnell followed
what's
by
his
Brian.
face.
And I can sit there for a number of nights watching those shows. And then somebody tells me, have you ever seen Schitt's Creek? And I will look.
My wife is very similar to that. I get a little, I have it a little bit up to here at a certain point. And I read a little bit. You do that, I know.
But yeah, I wish I was writing more. I've got to loosen my head to write more.
Well, here's the thing about writing that I I've written by myself and enjoy that in a different way than I enjoy writing with other people. And listen, you're talking about, I know you wrote for Rowan and Martin. I know you wrote for Martin and Lewis. There used to be teams. I came from a team, Franklin and Davis. I went to high school with Tom Davis, and we were a team for 20 some years. And there are very few of those now. But when you're on the staff of a show, and All in the Family, you had a writing staff, right? And you break stories, and you sit around the table and make each other laugh and work hard, actually. And I was talking to Conan O'Brien, I don't know, a couple months ago, COVID driving so many people crazy. And he said, I went into comedy to be in rooms with funny people. That's why I went into comedy.
I love that.
And isn't that it? I mean, that's right. To me, it's like that kind of writing is not work. It is sometimes you hit a moment where it's a lot of, you're working hard, but when it's working, it's not work.
The work, I associate deadlines with work. It's not work until there are deadlines. And when you have to finish something by a certain hour because there are a dozen actors on a stage waiting for the words,
that's work.
That can be work.
And that's a series. If you're doing a series, that's happening every week or something, or it's happening a lot. But it's nice to have, a script, and then a really solid script that has a great table read where everyone's laughing, and then you're rewriting, and you're feeling really good. Isn't that's a great feeling, right?
It's the greatest feeling is having worked hard and written a script. And then 3 days of rehearsal, you don't see anything until the third night of rehearsal. And you walk in and you see something that kills you, that wasn't written, that wasn't in the script at all. The actors and the director found. Oh, my God, what a gift that is.
Who were the actors? Who was the directors? Who were...
Carol O'Connor as Archie, and
but I mean, who came up with stuff? Who are the ones who came up with stuff?
If you saw enough of All in the Family, you could remember an argument Mike and Archie had. They had to sleep together one night.
Is this the shoes and the sock?
Yes.
Yes.
All these years later, Al, you remember that because it's so hilarious.
Explain it to the folk, because I can't.
Well, they were getting dressed, and Mike saw Archie, or Archie saw Mike put on a sock and a shoe, and he said, "You're supposed to put on a sock and then a shoe and a shoe."
Yes.
And that was 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes of utter hilarity.
Gold.
And it was a gift that they found in rehearsal.
Also, all of this is coming from character.
Yes.
So that is, the comedy of character, man. That is the key, isn't it?
This was a gift of the characters and the actors playing the role.
Oh, that was, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a combo of, and you got Rob Reiner, who is, a world-class comedy director, obviously. Brilliant. And Comedy Mind, and Carol O'Connor, who was a world-class dramatic actor as well. I
must have interviewed 30 guys for that role in New York before I flew out to California to do some interviews in L.A. And I don't know when he was the 6th or 10th or 15th L.A. actor who came in to read for me. I mean, he wasn't off the second page before my heart was pounding. I remember so clearly, oh, my God, I hope he's available. I hope we can make a deal. I do. And it wasn't like I found Archie that it was in my mind when I wrote the script. I don't know, I remember what I had in my mind, but he sat down.
He replaced whatever you had in your mind with him.
Yes. And one of the great gifts of a career.
Who else? Who of all, I mean, you had, Jimmy Walker, who I did stand up, early on in both of our careers. And again, that was being, and just a funny guy.
Just a funny guy.
There it is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Casting is the acceptance of a series of gifts. Who knew what? I hadn't seen Jimmy Walker in a club or anything. He walked in, read a role, and I couldn't have imagined a Jimmy Walker in a million years, or a Carol O'Connor, or a Gene Stapleton, or B. Arthur. Well, B. Arthur I knew because we were friends. I'd seen her in many things. But the gift of what a glorious comedic actor can give you in a role, I think it was a gift of birth to be somebody who could appreciate it as much as I've appreciated it, and nourished by it as much as I've been nourished by it.
Well, okay, you're 98. And the nourishment, I think, is a reason for your being 98. And I saw you at the Kennedy Center I don't know, 5 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And you did a thing which just cracked me up. And I can't do it as well as you, and I'm probably a lot of stuff cracked me up. So but you said I get applause just doing this because of how old I am. You know what I'm talking about?
Probably walking across the stage.
That's right. Which was so both funny and, of course, everyone burst into applause. But that's what you did. You set it up, and we didn't know what you were saying, what you were about to do, and you just walked. And you were probably 94 at that time, 95, spry 95.
Oh, my God.
So pretty good. I hope, okay, you got your first inoculation, and let's, Jesus Christ, hope that all this works, huh?
What a time we live in. But I don't want to wake up the morning without hope, so...
Oh, no. We have amazing amount of hope. What I'm saying is every day they're rolling, the Biden team is rolling something out.
Yes.
That gives us hope. And today it was like, it was basically doing things so that people of color can get mortgages, can get, have a home. I mean, if you look at when you came back from World War II, there's a GI Bill, but Black veterans, soldiers coming back, they were redlined and couldn't buy a house. And,
you mentioned Black soldiers. In my missions out of Foggia, Italy, often we experienced the gift of the Tuskegee Airmen escorting us across, well, in their case, right across the bomb site, because the fighters flying escort, it wasn't necessary for them. They weren't ordered to go across the bomb zone where the missiles from the ground were thickest. But the Tuskegee guys, for the most part, did. And so when we saw those red tails, I remember feeling better, if not literally safer.
Mm-hmm. That's something. That is really something. Man, Norman. Man, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for a lovely evening.
There it is. There's your dream. Because I just you couldn't see me, but you should have seen. I wish we you could have seen the joy on my face hearing you singing.
You're wrong. I can see you, and I could see you all the way through. I mean, I couldn't literally with my eyes see you, but your spirit is so alive in me. I see you very clearly.
You say that to all the podcast hosts.
I do, and I do it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening. That beautiful music is by Leo Kottke, the great Leo Kottke. I want to thank Peter Ogburn for producing this podcast. We'll talk again next week.